the Pikeville City Manager's Report. I'm Jill Fraley-Dawson, your host for today's show. As always, joined by Pikeville City Manager Philip Elswick. Good day.
Hello, Jill.
How are you?
Good.
Listen, we have had a busy 2021 already, and we're just at mid-March.
We are.
Hard to believe that we've come this far. We're actually recording today's show about the time 1 year ago when everything changed. So we're going to recap some of the things that have happened in the past year,
Right.
365 days, and then we're going to talk about some great events and things that are coming up in the city that people are going to be really excited about as we move, hopefully, beyond COVID-19. So first of all, let's talk about City Hall and the fact that all services at City Hall are now open to in-person.
Yeah, since early January, I think, all of our in-person services at City Hall, the Economic Development Office, police and fire departments have been open to the public. You can walk in off the street and have all the issues that you need taken care of. All those options we had in place during the pandemic when our offices were closed, like call in to open utility accounts or close them, pay your utility bill over the phone or online, all of those options are still available. They were successful during that trial period, I suppose, and we're going to continue those things into the future to make our services more user friendly.
You know, I've always said, at least in the past few months, that the pandemic has caused us to reevaluate some of the way that we do business in the city, and what we found is that there are certain services that are needed that we can do in a more efficient manner.
Absolutely.
And utilities, those sorts of things are certainly along that line.
Well, not only utilities, but also our code enforcement, where it's not necessary to come to City Hall to get your building permit. You know, call Robert Smith on his cell phone or see him out in public. You can take care of all those needs there. There's just so many things that we have identified ways to do things easier, to better serve our customers, our citizens, businesses, as a result of the pandemic that we probably wouldn't have tried otherwise. You know, it's really opened a lot of new opportunities and new doorways to do things.
Absolutely. One of the things of the last year that has been so disappointing, I think, for a lot of our community members and residents, but also for our visitors, are all of the festivals, street events, Hillbilly Days, of course, that had to be canceled last year. So now, as we look toward the vaccine rollout being a little stronger in our area and people getting vaccinated properly, we're able to start to look beyond and to plan some things. And certainly we're doing that. Festivals, events, July 4th. Is coming up. You know, it'll be here before we know it. We're already in March, but there's an event planned for then, and then also later in the fall.
Right. You know, one of the first questions I often get asked is when we're going to start having events again. And with the way things are looking now, with the vaccinations, with just frankly so many people having the virus, that we're kind of reaching a level that it's not being transmitted as quickly, we're starting to look at those events again. And we certainly intend to begin having Main Street Live again, and those events start in June. And then in July, at the 4th, as you said, will be our first major event, so to speak. And the 4th has always been a big event for us, but we're going to expand that over 2 or 3 days. I think the 4th is on a Sunday this year, maybe, and we're going to make that more of a weekend type festival. Have food trucks and some vendors of that nature, and just try to begin rolling back out into our larger events.
Yeah, and then in the fall, preparations are underway, planning stages in full force for a Moonshine Music and Makers Festival that will be in September.
Yeah, this is a totally new event. We do want to focus on our heritage. And our heritage obviously is music, moonshine, and Appalachian craft and things of that nature. We want to get back to those traditional sort of things that we used to have at Hillbilly Days that have kind of gone by the wayside. We want to bring those back and begin reintegrating those into the events and the things that we do in the downtown area. So it's a new event scheduled for mid-September, and includes a music festival component. So we're excited about that. It has the potential to be a really nice addition to our city.
Right, and then late into September, Hoptoberfest will happen. Our retail gating and wine tasting that Main Street has always done in September, those two events have now been joined together, so we can have something for everyone who wants to come in.
And that's all coupled with all the things that are going to be going on at the arena and the app. Most of those can't be talked about now, but if things happen the way we expect them to, there's going to be a lot going on downtown in the second half of 2021.
We'll not have a lack of things to do.
There will be no shortage.
No shortage at all.
We'll make up for all the ones we canceled.
That's true. That's true. Our comprehensive plan is something that we worked on right before the pandemic started, and then all throughout the pandemic. And obviously, with certain components of that project, new ideas came about because of what we were living through. That plan is complete. A review is now taking place, and we should be able to present that sometime later this spring.
Right. Anytime doing a comprehensive plan is never easy because it's a comprehensive plan. You're looking at every facet of the city. In the midst of a pandemic is especially difficult, and this is the first one I've done as city manager. I hope to never do another one like it. I hope the ones in the future are a little simpler to pull off. But we made a very conscious effort to engage our community, to get their feedback. The plan's really for them. It's not for us. We just are the ones that execute it. And we were very successful in that, I think. We had a number of public meetings that were held at the arena where we gathered input in person. And then we had a survey that made its way around social media, and we got about 900 responses to that. Far, far more responses than I would have ever anticipated. But a lot of great information, and all of that, coupled with many stakeholder meetings and small group meetings, has rolled into a comprehensive plan, which, as you said, should be released later this spring. We're finalizing that now, as a matter of fact. And the plan essentially focuses on 6 different aspects. Our natural resources, which of course in Eastern Kentucky is a huge asset to us, but we're looking at ways to protect our green space area, to better utilize those things. One of the major points that is coming out of the plan is people want to see more trails and more outdoor recreation. So one of the things that we will be looking at very diligently over the next 5 years is a way to expand our trail system. Greenways, which is a trail that runs along a water body of water, is something that people very much want to see. So we're blessed to have the Levice Fork in Pikeville, as well as the Pikeville Pond, which is the remnant of the Levice Fork. And we'll be looking at ways to construct trails along those bodies of water. It's not going to be easy. There's a lot of landowners in there. There's a lot of easements that would have to be obtained, and some public education that'll be necessary. But that's the goal, and we're going to work toward it over the next 5 years. Additionally, our public spaces and our recreation, and we talk about these spaces a lot, the downtowns and our parks, but over the course of this plan, we're going to be looking at development of more recreational facilities, specifically in the downtown area. A splash pad is something that we've talked about for a while. That was another component that came out of our surveys, as well as pickleball courts. We will be looking for places to do those in the downtown area. If you're familiar with Pikeville, you know that space is limited. So we have to plan carefully and make certain that we're putting it in the right place, or even determining if there is space for it. But regardless, we'll be adding those facilities at other places in town as well. At Bob Amos, we have a number of tennis courts. We've already transitioned a couple of those into tennis courts / pickleball courts, and we're looking to build new pickleball courts and tennis courts actually this spring. Hopefully that project will go to construction this spring. And then in the past, we have had a program on the Pikeville Pond with paddle boats, and frankly it just wasn't very successful the first time. Perhaps the marketing wasn't very good, the advertising, so we're going to be looking to reestablish that, do that in a different way in 2021 and beyond, to make that a more successful program. Additionally, cultural resources. Eastern Kentucky, Pikeville especially, is ripe with culture. So we'll be looking at ways to expand upon that, create historic districts in our downtown area. A number of places in our downtown area are already in historic districts, but we'll be looking to expand those. And initially that might look a little scary. It sounds like you're going to be protecting these districts, and to some extent that's true. But there is a number of benefits to the property owners in historic districts. There's tax credits that you can obtain. There are grants you can obtain to restore your building, to modify your building in any way. So it's a good thing for your city. It's by no means something to be concerned about. In the downtown area, one of the projects that we will be exploring, and something that I've toyed with for a while, is a way to redevelop a portion of the Hamley Boulevard corridor to make it more pedestrian friendly and more aesthetically pleasing. And that will be the portion of the boulevard that runs along the university, in front of our office on the boulevard, past the police station, where there's much more pedestrian traffic, that we can make it safer, we can make it more attractive for people to be there. Of course, economic development is a huge part of our comprehensive plan, and it focuses on a number of different things. Business retention and expansion, I feel like we've already checked that box by hiring Jeffrey Justice to head up that effort for us. But we're also looking at startups and innovation. We've discussed some incubation space that we may have to begin more of a high-tech type of economy here. Partnerships between the airport, the industrial park, the hospital, U-Pike, and Big Sandy were identified as ripe for opportunity to look at ways to create business, to identify new technologies, and to spin those off into new businesses. And of course, recreation, as I mentioned earlier, has just a tremendous potential for growth. Looking at things like ecotourism, adventure guides, sporting goods shops, outfitters, things of that nature. And then finally, tourism has a number of components that we'll begin working toward and utilizing. Our adventure, recreation, and heritage, looking at ways to strengthen our heritage sites, music, mining, and as well as the Hatfield-McCoy feud, but also promoting ecotourism. We have talked sometime internally to develop a system of city-specific historic markers and landmarks. So that will be part of this effort to identify those things in Pikeville that are worthy, I suppose that's a poor choice of words, but that deserve to be memorialized in some way. And it'll be something very similar to the highway markers you see along all the state roads. We want to, the Big Sandy Heritage Museum is very much there, but we want to kind of reestablish that, to roll it out again, so to speak. Maybe look for a new location for that facility. That can be a destination for any town, and certainly for ours. The airport, as part of this plan, was identified as a tremendous asset to the city of Pikeville. Looking at ways to use that for tour charters, to support small business, specifically to attract businesses that want that sort of airport. And there's a number of niche markets that way. Destination resort was identified as something that we need to work to attract and develop, and I know you're working on that now. And then wellness tourism is, I guess, the next big thing in tourism, so to speak. And it's a combination of medical treatment, healing, and/or healthy living, coupled with outdoor recreation and healthy food options. We've got all those things covered in Pikeville, so we just need to put it all together into a package and work toward marketing that wellness tourism.
Another thing that is on that list, we have, you mentioned before, our God-given natural resources that we have with the pond, the Leviathan Fork, obviously. Very close distance to the Breaks Interstate Park that has tremendous fishing there.
Absolutely.
So attracting low-impact fishing, people that love to fish our waters now. I mean, it really is a destination for so many people. And we think about, like here, if we go 3 hours to fish, say in Asheville, a little bit further, or down into Tennessee, well, those people are also looking for places to go,
right.
and they want to come north.
Exactly.
So we're ready to welcome them in. So that component of the comprehensive plan is going to be major and have a huge impact on the way that we see our economic growth going forward. They call it economic development-based tourism, and certainly we are primed for something like that.
Right. We will obviously continue to very heavily market and recruit businesses to the industrial park, but this is a new twist on our economic development strategy, looking at recreation-based and tourism-based businesses. And there's so much entrepreneurial spirit in this region that people can take that to develop businesses that support the assets that we have. We're looking at ways to work with other regional entities to support a regional tourism type concept. it's not just about Pikeville, it's about supporting our region. It takes all of us to make this work, as we talk about a lot. So,
Yeah, we all have to be on the same page.
that's right.
One of the things, and that's a perfect segue into the next topic we're going to discuss, is a partnership and is a collaboration with PMC and UPike, and that is to explore medical industry development and what we can do here with our workforce and the resources that we have.
Right. This conversation really started early on in the pandemic when there was a shortage of PPE or personal protective equipment, and we were looking at ways that we could fill that gap. So we expanded that to make it a much more comprehensive type program, to work with the university and its medical and optometry schools, and the hospital and its assets and its employees and facilities, and ways that we could develop and grow a medical industry, as you said. And that may be focused on biomaterials or advanced biomechanic type things, pharmaceuticals, drug development, any number of things. You know, the initial step in that is certainly this grant from the U.S. Economic Development Administration, which will fund a feasibility study to look at the feasibility of starting that sort of industry in Pikeville and in eastern Kentucky. And assuming that is determined to be, something that's possible, we will go to work, securing funds to develop whatever is the next phase, if it's construction of a building or whatever that may be. But it is hopeful that combination of the city and the university and the hospital PMC will spin off a number of new businesses that will locate in Pikeville or elsewhere in the region and begin to foster a growth of medical, pharmaceutical manufacturing industry. Maybe initially that sounds a little outlandish, I don't know, but you have to start somewhere. And there's no reason that can't happen here.
You do. And one of the things, again, that the pandemic caused us to do is think outside the box a little bit.
Absolutely.
So when that initial conversation began, we really didn't know what it was going to look like until we just explored a few more of the options and found that this might be something that we wanted to delve into. And certainly we're hopeful that will work out and we will have many businesses spawn from this initial effort.
Well, we're very blessed to be in a city that has a regional medical center as well as a university that is very forward thinking and has an optometry school and an osteopathic medical school. Probably no other community in America has that, and we need to leverage those assets and their leadership that's very community minded to kind of change the trajectory of eastern Kentucky.
Certainly. One of the things we always get asked about, and it's always nice to give a positive update, is our fiber project that we have.
Our fiber project has been going on for a while now, but we are very, very close to actually getting to a point of construction. A long delay it has been associated with the make-ready cost, and by make-ready I mean the utility poles that are in place now, looking at whether those need to be replaced or how they need to be modified to add our hardware to those poles. That's a lengthy process. I think there's 1,800 poles in this project that needed to be assessed. So we've completed, or we haven't, but the utilities completed about 90% of that make-ready cost. It is in budget, what we had projected beforehand, so that's a very positive thing. And as soon as that work is complete, engineering can kind of wrap up toward the end of that process too. And then construction will begin very soon. I'd love to tell you what day, but I can't do that right now. But we are looking for ways to begin the first service through our program. And there's a number of ways that we may be able to do that. I'm not ready to talk about those. But in the very near future, you should be seeing a new source of fiber internet in Pikeville.
With spring comes a lot of construction projects,
It does.
and this year is not going to be any different. And something that our community members, our residents, and certainly our visitors need to be aware of is the construction of a new pedestrian tunnel close to the hospital.
Yeah, this tunnel will connect the hospital proper on the Harold's Branch side of the bypass with the parking lot rehab facility on the other side. It's something that's very needed there. It will certainly enhance the safety of pedestrians as they're going between different parts of the facility. And that construction should begin, it's currently targeted to begin mid-April. And that is going to lead to the bypass in front of the hospital being closed for some amount of time, several weeks, not months, but several weeks. And during that time, traffic will be detoured through town around Hamley Boulevard. So just be mindful of that as you're traveling through that area. And patient. Yeah, very much patient. But there will be traffic rerouting. It could be difficult, for a while. That's a very busy place there. So just be mindful of that and plan accordingly.
We, last year, part of the pandemic was the shuttering of many of our event spaces, including the arena, the Appalachian Center for the Arts. There were so many events and shows and conventions, conferences planned that you were going to utilize those two spaces. And now, as we said earlier in the program, we're kind of rebounding from that a little bit and having to make up for what we lost. But recently, the arena has had great success booking shows for the remainder of the year. Travis Tritt was here just recently, and just the beginning of March, the first portion of the middle school wrestling state championship was in the arena. This is something that was this the second time, I think, that we've had something and brought people from everywhere?
It did. If you were in town that weekend, which was the very first part of March, there were people everywhere.
Everywhere.
I'm told that there were no hotel rooms in the city, which is a great problem to have. People were having to stay outside of town. The restaurants were very busy. People were in the streets, along the sidewalks all day, through the night. So it's really nice to see that again. We had become accustomed to seeing that pre-pandemic, and it was nice to see it again. And back in mid-February, we had our first event since the pandemic, and that was the Travis Tritt concert, and that was very successful. It was a socially distanced show, of course, but we received a lot of comments back from folks that attended that they felt perfectly safe, that they were glad, they were thrilled to be there, and we'll be coming back in the future for more shows. So stay tuned. We'll be rolling out a lot of things in the future. Mid-April, we have the National Arm Wrestling League and the Kentucky State Tournament. Those were scheduled for the dates of Hillbilly Days, and the tournament will continue, and it will be indoors at the arena. And then in April 24th, we have Aaron Lewis, excuse me, and then mid-July, we have the first Pikeville Gun and Knife Show.
So the arena is very busy.
The arena is very busy, and from July through the end of the year, there's a lot going on. Yeah. Some dates we have 3 holds on that date for shows that are interested in being in Pikeville. So there will be no shortage of events and entertainment in the city for the rest of the year.
Certainly, I do want to mention, though, the fact that there's also meeting space within the arena. The ballrooms upstairs are available now to be booked. They are pros now at making sure that all of those events are socially distanced. And not only that, but they also oversee the booking for events at the Overlook Event Center, which is, has become, I was looking at pictures this morning of where we were this time last year with the event center, and I thought, my gosh, we've come so far. Since then, it's open and it's hosting events, but if you want to book some event space and maybe the arena is a little too large, make sure that you check out the event center on the top of Bob Amos Park, because it is really a place that can put on wonderful events.
And the Appalachian Center for the Arts is also available.
It is also available. And that's the other thing I was going to talk about too. The app, being a small venue, it's hard to get those smaller shows sometime, and they were doing so well before, but kind of pivoting a bit, they're now hosting art exhibits on the upper floor, which is something that space was always designed for, and maybe wasn't overly used. But now we had Crossroads that is there now. We had a wonderful Native American display in there early on in the year. And then the World of Jesus is coming up. There's a biblical display that will be there for a number of weeks.
The Crossroads exhibit that's there now is based on rural America and changes in rural America over time. And it's a Smithsonian exhibit, a travel exhibit. And we were chosen through the Kentucky Humanities as one of the locations for that exhibit. I think there's maybe 9 cities in Kentucky that's hosting it, so it's quite an honor to be selected. It's an excellent exhibit. If you haven't been able to get there, it'll be there through April the 3rd, and it's open every day, Monday through Friday, free of charge to look at that exhibit. It's really interesting. I'd encourage you to go if you haven't seen it.
They had a unique performance by a young lady that read poetry by Effie Waller-Smith at their opening date.
Right.
She is going to be rejoining us at the end of March to do another performance. And if you haven't seen it and you weren't able to get out to the opening day, I encourage you to stop by there. You'll see some publicity about that coming up in the next few days. But it really is just an amazing time to be able to hear her read the poetry of one of our most remarkable citizens.
Yes, Effie Waller-Smith was a poet and a teacher. She was the first African-American poet to be published in a national magazine, and she's from Pikeville. It's really interesting. She taught at what was officially a segregated school, but became an integrated school on Biggs Branch near Millard, solely because there were no other schools for the kids to go to. So she was teaching in an integrated school in Pike County 60 years before it was required throughout the United States, which is quite a feat. She was also very much a fan of the breaks before it was the breaks. She was visiting there and hiking and touring that area before the breaks Interstate Park ever existed. And that's a big source of imagery in her poetry, is the park, her Appalachian home, its people and its food, mountains. She was a fascinating person, and this actress portrays her in just a remarkable way. It really brings that to life. So if you didn't see it in February, please make an effort to see it in March. It's really amazing.
Yeah. And then the next exhibit coming up, The World of Jesus, starts on April 13th and will run all summer through September. This is, a large part of this will be from an exhibit that was on display a few years ago. But now will be kind of condensed. Some new pieces are going to be there, some new information shared. It is also going to be a wonderful exhibit, and certainly something that having there a little bit longer will give more opportunity for groups and churches and people from all over to take part in.
Yeah, this exhibit was in the York House the first time that it was shown in Pikeville, and now it'll be at the App. And it's a larger exhibit. It's not the same exhibit that was here a few years ago now. So by all means, come back to see it.
Last thing I want to mention about the app is that Robin and her team are working feverishly to make sure we have camps for our kids this summer, to make sure that they have something to do and they can do. I encourage you to check out their website, check out their Facebook page. It's loaded with tons of information about how you can get your kids involved, and maybe if you're an adult and you've ever wanted to try your hand at acting, or maybe you could sit in on a few of those too. And then several shows lined up for the fall.
Yep.
So
it's going to be a busy time.
It is going to be a busy time, and we do want to mention, though, that our city commission meetings are still not open to the public, but they are live streamed twice a month. People can view that way. There's also a portion in there where you can submit questions in our Business from the Floor segment. So we're hopeful that those meetings can soon be reopened to the public.
Hope so.
Yeah, we certainly do. But it's a busy time in the city of Pikeville, and
always.
Of course, spring is here. Lots of projects going on. The flowers, I'm told, I was going to ask about that. So the flowers, I'm told, are in the greenhouse, and they are blooming perfectly, according to Doris. So we're excited to get everything back to life and welcome guests into our community.
For certain.
Always a pleasure, Philip.
Yep. Thank you.
This has been the Pikeville City Manager's Report. Thank you so much for joining us.